Science Makes, and today we're going to be making an SVG file, moving it into Design Space, and then cutting it out and putting it on a wooden plaque. So the only materials you're going to need for this project are a couple of colors of vinyl that you're going to use, and some transfer paper, and of course your Cricut machine. So before we get started, please remember, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let's get started. I'm going to take you through some simple steps on how to make an SVG file just using Illustrator. And as we get into Illustrator, we're just going to use some fonts, we're going to convert them and then save them as SVG files. The process is actually quite simple. So if you have Illustrator or a trial version, you can use this process. So let's take a look here. I'm just going to create a custom one. This happens to be 12 inches by 12 inches. It's 864 pixels by 864. And I'm going to just give it, I'm going to just call it Christmas Greeting. And 864 by 864, I'm not going to worry about the rest of it. We're going to use one artboard for now, and we could use other settings, but it's just plain and simple, and we just want to keep it that way. So let's create this. And just take a second or two. Now this is our artboard. Generally it's 12 inches by 12 inches. So when I create some of these sayings, I make them pretty large, and when we save them as SVG files, they become what they call vector graphics, and those vectors allow you to shrink or make them grow. So I like to create them big so I can see them. So we're going to start off by coming over here and clicking on T for text. Now it's going to bring us over to the board. Now you'll notice that it has a Myriad Pro font, but I don't want Myriad Pro when I go to type something, because what we're going to do is we're just going to call it Christmas Magic. So I want a nice bold and stylish calligraphy. So as you can see in my list, I have bold and stylish calligraphy. I'm going to click on that, and right now it's set to 12 points, so I'm going to make it pretty large. So let's make it 72. I'm going to click here, and then I'm just going to type in the word Christmas. Now this is the font that I want for this one line, and what I suggest you do when you make SVG sayings, that you take one line for each word and separate them out, because then it's easier when you get into Cricut Design Space, and then you can take them apart and move them around on your own. So that's the first one. Now I don't necessarily want to have the same font for the next word, and that's the word magic. So all I'm going to do here is now come to the board and click. Even though it gives me the same one, I'm going to change from bold and stylish. I want a nice thick font. Now the reason I want a thick font is because when we go to do it in Design Space and say we want to cut on some vinyl, we want it thick enough that you're not picking out these little hairline pieces. So you want a pretty heavy one. Now I'm just going to pick on Montserrat Regular. It's just because it's in my list, and it looks pretty thick. And this time we just want to type in the word magic, and it looks pretty good. Okay, so now we've got the words that we want. I'm going to click on my selection tool, which is up here, so that now I can move them around to where I want them. And these are just selection tools. Now magic is pretty big, but I want Christmas even bigger. So I can either type in the point size that I want, or I can simply hold down the shift key in any corner and bring it up. And there we go, Christmas Magic. Now we're not finished yet because this is just plain text. I'm going to click away. And the reason we're not finished is if we bring the text in this way into Design Space, it's not going to work the way we think it is. So the first thing I want to do is highlight Christmas. I'm going over to Object and I'm going to click on Expand. I'm going to expand both the fill and the object. Click OK. And when I come over here, you'll notice that it's filled with black, but it has no stroke, and the stroke is the outside piece. So I'm going to switch those around, and you'll see I get a perfect outline. Now there's one thing you can see here on this outline, and take a closer look. You'll see where the letters cross over in some places. Well, we don't want that to happen when it gets into Design Space, because each of those little pieces will cut out. So while we still have it selected, we're going to go over to our Pathfinder tool, and it looks like this. And over here on the top, it's got the shape modes, and the first one is called Unite. I'm going to click on that, and as you can see, it makes it one object. Now that is easier for you to handle when you get into Design Space. We're going to do the same thing for the word magic. First thing you want to do is Object, Expand, both the object and the fill. OK. Come over, flip around so that you have a stroke and no fill, so we get the word magic. And we're also going to unite this together as one piece. And there we go. So now we can move those around. Now you could change the way the word magic is, but we're not going to do that right now. Now this is a simple version. I'm going to highlight both, and I'm going to make sure that they are centered. And that looks pretty good. They're centered over top of each other at this point. And I'm going to group them, Object, Group. So now we have the perfect saying with a great font. I'm not going to add any other embellishments. This is a simple process. So now what we need to do is we're going to export this as an SVG. So I'll click on the word File, but I am going to export the selection. And the reason is I don't want the whole artboard behind us. It comes up with assets or artboards. So if yours is on artboard, switch over to assets. It says Christmas Magic. It says asset 1. Well, I don't want to call it asset 1. I'm going to put in Christmas Magic. And the reason I'm naming it is because when I go to find it in my files, it will say Christmas Magic. Now, down here, I have selected SVG. Push down the down button here, you see you can go PNG or JPEG file as well, or a PDF. But since we're making an SVG, I'm just going to leave it simply at SVG. You also have a file location, and this file location for me just happens to be my blog folder where I want it to go. And I'm going to open the location after export just to make sure. You could create a subfolder, but there's no point in creating a subfolder for this because this is one project, but you could if you have a number of them. Now all I'm going to do is click Export Asset. Now it did open my folder with the asset in it, and because it's an SVG and we did call it Christmas Magic, which is here, I won't be able to get a preview because it's an SVG file. Now I'm just going to move this out of the way. What we're going to do next is we're going to open Cricut Design Space and bring it in. Okay, now we're ready. We've got it open. I'm just going to maximize it so we get a full screen. You'll be able to see better. I'm going to click on New Project. Then I'm going to click on Upload, which you find over here. I'm going to upload an image, click Browse, and it is in my folder, so I am looking for Christmas Magic. Christmas Magic right here. I'm going to open that file. And here's our text that we created. I'm just going to leave it called Christmas Magic, and I think I'll give it a tag of Christmas. And then we're going to save it. Click on the image itself, and then we're going to insert the image onto our platform, onto our canvas. Now you'll see that it's going to come across, let's see, how wide is it? It's about 6 inches, which isn't too bad, by about 3 inches. Perfect. Now if you come and take a look over here, and this is the side, you get the magic right here. You get the dot is a separate cut file from the eye. I want to ungroup this whole thing, so we're going to ungroup it. And then I'm going to pick on just Christmas. Select that. Well, I don't want it to be in black because I know when I get to the black I'll never be able to see it. So we're going to make the Christmas green, and it is set up as a cut file. Christmas Magic. And then the word magic also, so I'm going to change that to green as well because I want them to cut on the same mat, but I'm going to use 2 different materials. But I don't want to join them together at this point. I just want the 2 different ones here. So this is set up to cut. I'm just going to check on my layers panel. It is set to cut, and the eye is set separately. So what we want to do is hold those 2 together. We're going to attach them so that the eye doesn't move when it has a cut. And we're going to take a look at magic itself. These are all set up as cut files. Put them all together. I'm going to attach those as well. And the reason we want to attach them is that not only can I move it around, but when it goes to cut them in the vinyl, you're going to find that they're going to stick together as well. Now, because I colored them green, that means they're going to go on the same mat, and that's the whole point behind this. I want it on the same mat even though the 2 things are separate. I can use 2 separate colors when I go to do it on the mat. So let's just save this, and we're going to save it as Christmas Magic. Click on Save. And then we're going to make it, which means I have better turn on my machine. Our 2 items here, you'll see Christmas comes by itself and magic is over here. Well, if we move it over, so it's about the 7.5 inch mark, when we take out our pad and we're going to put it on our mat, as you can see, the mat, I can put the vinyl for Christmas here and the magic over here, so I have 2 different items on my mat, and that's going to work out perfectly because when I cut it I'll be able to apply it separately. So I'm going to go ahead and show you my mat, and then we're going to cut it, and then I'll show you how to apply it. So what I've done is I've actually put my vinyl in 2 different pieces to match what I had in Design Space. So now that they've both been cut, I've cut Christmas here and magic here. Now it's time to do some weeding. Now for this project I used a holographic sparkle vinyl, and in this one I used a glitter vinyl, so I've used both. And even though they didn't come in the tubes, I saved old tubes in order to be able to store them properly later. Now what I want to do is I want to weed these, but in order to weed them, I don't want to stick to the mat. So I'm going to use the cover for the mat to go just below it here so that I have some surface to work. Now I have pre-cut some of my transfer tape so that it'll be easy once we've got done. We also have a small scraper that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be applying it to this small plaque. Now I bought this plaque at the dollar store for $1.25, and it has a place in the back where you can hook up a nail in order to hang it up. So I'm ready to go with this. So we're going to start off by just weeding the outer parts. Okay, now we're ready to add our transfer tape. Now I just cut out a small piece and I'm going to apply it over top of the word Christmas. We'll just smooth it down. Okay, I have now lifted these off of the mat and the backing, and they're just right now just holding them on the backing of the transfer tape. So the first thing we want to do is I want to take the word Christmas, just peel it off of here for now, and I want to be able to center it exactly where I want it on my mat. Now you'll notice that the transfer tape has a set of lines, and that's to make it easier for you to line them up. So I'm going to start with Christmas. I know we're going to have the next word underneath in the middle, but we're doing one at a time here. So but I just love this project, and now I can hang my Christmas magic up on the wall, and this is going to look absolutely fabulous. Well, how did you enjoy doing that? You got to design your own SVG file, bring it into Cricut Design Space, cut it out, and then make this gorgeous plaque. It was so easy to do. You'll want to start doing some more. So I hope you enjoyed this, and one last thing, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and happy crafting!